Wow. Just wow. I can't imagine how much effort it must have taken to make a movie that was wrong on every single level, in every measurable dimension of existence, but Ryan Coogler does, because he successfully achieved that dubious honour with Black Panther Wakanda Forever. If you do choose to go and watch this movie, don't forget to bring a pillow and a sleeping bag, because this is a very long haul. And if, like me, you find the movie insufferably overlong and pedantically obsessed with lingering over the most pointless of scenes, then if nothing else, at least you have the option of closing your eyes and catching up on a bit of sleep. And believe me when I say that in a darkened theatre with a movie this pointless and messy, that is something that is hard to fight. But I soldiered on, and while I don't want to compare the experience with the brave men who fought in the Falklands, the word yomping does come close to describing watching this movie. If you can imagine a soldier carrying a full kit while having to march over mountains and through swamps, then you will understand what watching this movie felt like. It was tough. And being the colonizer that I am, I made sure to go and see this movie on opening weekend. And you know what? All the other viewers in the half-empty cinema were colonizers too. Which was strange. It was almost as if normal people just don't pay attention to the nutters on TikTok and Twitter. Yes, Twitter and other social media are not real life, and very little attention should be paid to these idiots. But before I continue, please consider subscribing, as that would really help me out. And if you like this content, give it a like. Okay, on with the vid. Now, it is no secret that I couldn't even get through the whole of the original Black Panther movie in one sitting, because it was almost unwatchably woke and racist. Plus they kill off the only interesting characters, which were Claw and Killmonger. Though I have ended up watching the whole thing by catching the bits I've missed on the various TVs that have passed before my eyes at one time or another. Black Panther Wakanda Forever is more of the same, but an even more bloated runtime, and minus the charisma of Chadwick Boseman and Michael B. Jordan. It is like watching paint dry, but with added racism, xenophobia and nationalist supremacy. I'll try to make this synopsis short, unlike the movie it describes. So, a quick breakdown of the story would be: a country of primitive yet technologically advanced xenophobes are left reeling by the loss of their king, and after telling the rest of the world that they are not interested in being involved with the world and helping to advance mankind, because they are the strongest country and so don't have to care about others, especially other ethnicities, so go away, or else. Then they get back to their favourite activity of isolating themselves from those pesky migrants. The Xenophobes' Princess Shuri, who is extremely upset at the loss of her brother King T'Challa, has been attempting to recreate the special herb that gave her brother superpowers, but since she couldn't do it, she decides to get on with being angry instead. Her mother, the Queen, sees this and decides to take her on a field trip to help her deal with her grief. But the princess is just so pissed off that instead of getting over her loss, she decides that what she would really like is for everyone else to be as miserable as herself, and so she says if she thinks about her loss too much, she will want to burn the whole world. Then, without warning, a bloke appears out of the river and compliments them on how nice their country is, and tells them his name is Namor. And then in almost the same breath and tone, he tells them off for revealing themselves to the world and causing other nations to search for vibranium all over the planet, including the seas where he lives. Namor is the second xenophobe in this tale of two xenophobes, and he hates the surface world for, well, we don't really know why, but there's a dodgy flashback of some nasty Spaniards. So, there's that, I guess. His culture is also vibranium rich, and he tells them that a scientist has created a machine that can find vibranium, and that he wants the Wakandans to bring the scientist to him. He then tells them that he has more soldiers than Wakanda has blades of grass, and that they are all super strong, and he would hate to have to come back under different circumstances. Threats finished, he warns them not to mention him to anyone outside of Wakanda, then walks off into the river. The princess and queen turn around to find that the man has left them a present of the submersible with the vibranium tracker. The Wakandans then have a bit of a chat, and after being upset that anyone other than themselves has access to vibranium, they decide to find the scientist, and for reasons known only to the idiot who wrote the script, decide that Princess Shuri should go with the actual warrior, Okoye, to look for the scientist. And if you, like me, thought, why the hell would they send the princess to do a task that could become dangerous, since it will probably involve semen, as my partner insisted on calling Namor, not to mention kidnapping and breaking who knows how many laws. Also, for some reason, they automatically go to America, even though at no point is the origin of the vibranium tracker mentioned. It is just assumed to be the Americans. Of course it was the Americans, but that's beside the point. They then go visit their favourite colonizer. Yes, they are still being casually racist towards white people, which is CIA operative Ross from the first movie. He tells them everything they want to know because, of course he would. He has no noticeable loyalty to his country and would probably prefer to live in Wakanda, though there's no way people like that would let someone like him actually live there. You can probably guess why. Anyway, they turn up at the scientist's door, and it turns out that she, of course it's a she, this is 2022 after all, and Hollywood's mask is now off, and we can all see the creepy little weirdo hiding behind it. She is named Riri. Yes, that Riri, and aren't we all looking forward to the new Ironheart series? Oh, well, that wasn't very enthusiastic. It's almost as if we can all imagine what this is going to be like. So Riri is the scientist that built the vibranium tracker, and we should be even more impressed and astounded at her genius because she did it for a science project in a garage using old pieces of junk. It's almost as if she is a woke version of Tony Stark. Oh wait. So the princess and Okoye tell Riri, "Come with me if you want to live." She goes with them, but when they are about to leave, the feds turn up and try to arrest the Wakandans, who they are blaming for the loss of their vibranium tracker. But Riri has invented her own flying suit, and during the escape manages to use it to deliberately kill police officers who were chasing her, the princess, and Okoye. There is no other explanation for her using her flying suit to crash a military drone into a bunch of police cars, other than stupidity. And even though there are at least serious injuries among the policemen, this event is never mentioned again, and Riri never expresses any remorse for her actions, other than worrying that she might get in trouble for it when she returns to America. Anyway, a fight occurs as the Seaman's people turn up to capture Riri. Okoye gets her ass handed to her by a big guy in a funny hat, and after she is thrown off a bridge, the princess surrenders under the condition no harm is done to Riri. And again, we're left to wonder, if Riri was in so much danger, and we know that Namor wants her dead, then why the hell weren't there more Adore Milage? And why the extra hell was the princess allowed to go with them? It is convoluted, dumb, and a badly devised plot device. Princess Shuri then meets with Seaman, who tells her his life story, which started 400 years ago in South America. And we also learn that white people are bad, and that the vibranium herb, which gives the Black Panther his powers, has an aquatic counterpart, which still gives you superpowers, but also causes people to not be able to breathe air, and forces them to live in water if they eat it, which all of Namor's mother's tribe do, because of white people being bad. And to be fair, we are talking about the conquistadors here, so white people very bad. Oh, and it also turns everyone blue, so that's fun. Namor's mother was pregnant with him at the time she drank the herb, and this seems to have given him extra superpowers. So he has wings on his ankles that allow him to fly, and he can also breathe air, which none of the rest of his people can do. There is also an oddly disturbing underwater birth scene, which seemed unnecessary since we all know how children come about, and it just adds to the bloated runtime. Eventually, the Seaman's mother dies, and she wants to be buried in her homeland, which is on dry land. And when Namor returns, he finds that, yep, you guessed it, the bad white people have been enslaving the natives. So he kills all of them, but one of them calls him something or other Namor, which means child without love, and so this is where he took his name. I don't know why they felt they had to have a reason for his name, since they don't try to justify anyone else's name, and in reality it's just Roman spelt backward, which creator Bill Everett thought had a noble ring to it. Seaman then takes the princess to see his city, which is very big, and we see a bunch of, underwater Aztecs? I'm not sure what we are supposed to call these people, since they seem to have dumped the Atlantis story for the movie. As you can imagine, the underwater Aztecs are a bunch of extras who are clearly holding their breath, but trying not to look like they are holding their breath. And so starts the game of who can look the least like they are about to drown. Game over, Seaman tells the princess that he is going to wage a war to destroy the surface people, and he wants her to join him. Understandably, since she is a surface person, Princess Shuri says, "On your bike, you nutter." And so he tells her if she doesn't join him, he will kill the Wakandans first. Back in Wakanda, Queen Ramonda is understandably furious with Okoye and essentially fires her, so she holds no rank and is no longer in the Dora Milaje. The Queen then sends What's-Her-Name, the previous Black Panther's girlfriend, who I'd completely forgotten about, to investigate her daughter's disappearance and rescue her if she can. What's-Her-Name then finds the princess and Riri and rescues them. This causes Seaman to attack Wakanda, as he promised he would, and while he is there creating mayhem, he causes Queen Ramonda to drown while saving Riri's life. Then warns Princess Shuri that he will be back in a week with his entire army to wipe Wakanda off the face of the earth, and tells her that she is queen now. It really does need to be said that Seaman is extremely bipolar, One minute he is talking like a normal friendly person, and the next minute he will be threatening your life and murdering your mum, before again reverting to being soft-spoken and at least reasonably sane. Though how sane can you really be when you live underwater, all your friends are blue and you have little wings sprouting out of your ankles? But anyway, Shuri is understandably distraught, and her first point of business is to replicate the purple flower thing that gives the Black Panther his power by synthesizing a piece of purple plant that was woven into a bracelet given to her by seamen. After successfully recreating the flower, she then drinks a potion made from it and becomes the new Black Panther, because of course she was going to be the new Black Panther. Even if Chadwick had still been alive, I'm sure they would have simply created a backup female Black Panther anyway, because this is the world we live in. But what is even more stupid is that Okoye is right there, and unlike Miss Spoiled Inventor Princess, she is actually a real warrior with a great deal of experience and clearly the best choice for a new Black Panther, at least from the options available. And to add insult to injury, Shuri only takes a tiny sip of the potion, which leaves a bloody great bowl full that could have been used to create a whole load of super soldiers. It is a clear example of how the elite get what they want, and those better qualified but of low status are overlooked and ignored because me, I'm the star, get out of my face you plebs. So Shuri drinks the potion and has a vision of Killmonger, who tells her that she needs to be like him and take care of business, which makes Shuri act more aggressive and stupid than normal. One Predator handshake later, and Shuri is pronounced the new Black Panther, and unilaterally decides that they're going to war with seamen and the underwater Aztecs. The only voice of reason to be found is M'Baku, who points out that killing seamen would lead to a permanent war with the underwater Aztecs. But Shuri only cares about how upset she is at losing her mother and her brother, so doesn't give a damn about the people of Wakanda. So the war is on. But first, they need to figure out how to defeat the seaman, since he could probably kick Wakanda's ass all on his own. And so Riri and Shuri come up with a plan using their immense combined intellect, and their extremely well thought out scientific reasoning went something like this. Seaman lives in the sea, but for some reason he can breathe air, when the underwater Aztecs can't. And at one point in the attack on Wakanda, he went back into the water before attacking again, so therefore he gets his strength and breathes using the water on his skin. So all they have to do is convert a ship into a mobile hairdryer, then trick Seaman into going inside, and they will be able to defeat him. And this big brain moment took them all of 30 seconds to think of and decide that this must be exactly how to beat him. They didn't even consider any other options, which was very convenient for the plot. So the battle begins when the Wakandans take some sort of super yacht to the sea somewhere near the underwater Aztecs' home, and the battle seems reasonably even at first, but the tide soon turns in favour of the aquatic super soldiers, and the Wakandans, after much fighting, are essentially losing. Even Riri in her Ironheart suit, which is somewhere between a parody of Iron Man and the Power Rangers robot, isn't able to turn the tide. By some retarded miracle, the most idiotic plan in the universe that somehow required the Wakandans to entice the seamen into one of their shuttles actually works. Of course it only works because it's required to work for the plot. The plan was for Riri to fly around while Seaman chases her, and then while he is distracted, to catch him with a shuttle by flying the shuttle with the door open and, well, catching him. Now Seaman is trapped in the shuttle with the heating turned up to try and dry him out. The question is, why did he just stand there and look confused for 5 minutes when he could have just smashed through the other side of the shuttle or flown back out again? But nope, he just stands there. Then eventually he starts attacking the floor with his spear and the shuttle explodes on the shore. Then Seaman and the Black Panther fight, and the fight is actually pretty even, since the Seaman is depowered, thanks to his lack of water, but eventually he picks up a spear and stabs Shuri through the middle. In fact, right through her spine. At least the central nature of the stab appears that way, though I guess there is a chance that Shuri suffers from scoliosis, since that is the only reason I can think of why she is still able to walk, which she does after she pulls herself off the spear. She chases after Seaman as he tries to get to the sea, and after catching up with him, she somehow manages to still have control of the completely destroyed shuttle's engines, which just so happen to be intact, and just so happen to be behind Seaman. She then fires them up, and they burn Namor's back until he collapses. They agree a truce, and the war is over, which is a good thing for the Wakandans, as they were just about to get their asses beaten. So, the war is over, and everything can go back the way it was, except that it can't, because Queen Ramonda is dead, T'Challa is dead, Shuri relinquishes her claim to the throne, and M'Baku has no challengers, so claims the throne, which is by far the best result since he seems to be the most sensible person in Wakanda, and the funniest, which made his part of the movie the most enjoyable. And finally, it is over. Thank whichever deity you prefer, this was an absolute mindless slog of a movie that I will be happy to never watch again. Oh crap, it's still going. Yes, the classic Marvel mid-credit scene, which has both amused and enlightened and made us anticipate future offerings, at least it did in the past, is present, and in it we learn that T'Challa had a son with whatever that girl's name was, and lo and behold, his name is also T'Challa. So Marvel managed to dodge the, we don't want to recast Chadwick Boseman's T'Challa bullet, and instead just have a new character called T'Challa. Which obviously isn't a recast, even though everything will be the same except the timeline, which I am sure will be conveniently ignored, except for times when they want to exploit people's sentimentality with an emotional flashback scene in later movies. And finally, it is over. Really over. We can all go home. At least those of us who haven't already walked out in boredom and disgust at the blatant racism and terrible treatment and casting of Namor, who it turns out is just some bipolar sociopath who is just as likely to give you a bracelet as he is to murder your mother, dependent on how it serves his purpose. The fact that Wakanda itself is just ridiculous and insulting to Africans by making what is supposed to be the most advanced country in the world fight with spears, when they could go all Star Wars on everybody's ass with blasters and energy swords, not to mention the state of their political system, which is based upon the preeminence of physical strength, which means that no woman will ever be Queen of Wakanda, unless it is by accident, like with Queen Ramonda, who is only in charge because her husband and son are dead, and there had yet to be a leadership battle. I just can't believe that Wakanda can be so advanced, yet so entirely backward, that they are still dressing as though they are everyday Africans, when they would have invented clothing that protects them from the sun and keeps them cool, stops them from dehydrating, other very cool stuff. Their use of technology is bizarrely sporadic, and speaks more of a culture that has only recently come across a cachet of alien technology, and have not yet advanced enough to understand it or create it themselves, and so are just using it in amongst their own cultural staples. There is simply no other explanation for how they can be so backward, yet appear so advanced. There is no way that they would not have thrown off the shackles of culturally irrelevant technology once they had advanced beyond its usage. It feels as though the creators were being racist towards Africans by saying, look how advanced they are, except that they still live as though they were culturally identical to any other African tribe. It's just so unthinkably stupid. And then we have the underwater Aztecs, and I have a lot more sympathy for this forgotten tribe, because unlike Wakanda, where they jealously hide away their technology and laugh at how backward their neighbours are, the underwater Aztecs have no neighbours. They have no access to the rest of the world in general, so their culture remaining stagnant and not creating any technology makes sense, and they are not being culturally abused and made to appear backward by Western standards the way the Wakandans are. And what is with the body-positive Aztecs? Pretty much all of them were poster boys or girls for average physiques. Even Namor himself was just a normal, slightly out-of-shape guy you might see at the local swimming pool, not the formidable specimen of physical perfection that is portrayed in the comics. But anyway, let's look at the good bits. There is quite a touching send-off for Chadwick Boseman, and the acting in general was acceptable, and actually very good in places. Angela Bassett as Queen Ramonda put in a very good performance. Tenoch Huerta, I think that's how you pronounce it, did well as a psychopathic Namor, miscast as he was. But the standout for me was Winston Duke as M'Baku. Not only was he amusing and fun in his arrogance, but he was also sensible and diplomatically savvy in his response to the disasters befalling Wakanda. Yes, he did a monkey impersonation at one point, which seemed very wrong, but for me he was the most interesting evolved character in the movie. All in all, this movie is an absolute mess, and I can't even begin to imagine how it would have been better had Chadwick not sadly shuffled off this mortal coil. It would have been better, but only because it couldn't have been worse. If only they could have shaved 30 minutes off the runtime, this could have been at least watchable. But as it is, I'm just glad I don't ever have to watch it again. This has been Movie Suck, hoping that Disney will get what it deserves and be driven into bankruptcy by their own progressive agenda. It would be great karma after what they have done to the franchises that fans had hoped they would cherish. Signing out. Leave a like, share, subscribe, and I will catch you guys on the flip side.